Hey, what's up guys? This is the video for 3 rate of change. So let's go ahead and look what is rate of change, and we are going to transition from rate of change to slope. So first, let's understand average rate of change. When we have a ratio that is describing how much one quantity changes with respect to another quantity in another quantity, that is the average rate of change. The keyword is changing. So when one quantity changes over another quantity, that is the average rate of change. Let me give you guys a quick example here. Let's say that you guys have a person running 1 mile in 9 minutes. So what that means is the person changed from 0 miles to 1 mile over 9 minutes, from 0 minutes to 9 minutes. So that's how he's changing. So if you continue the pattern, well, 2 miles, that will be 18 minutes. If that person runs 1 mile in 9 minutes, well, he should or she should run 2 miles in 18 minutes. So that is the average rate of change. Now, in algebra, we do have the fraction here, and the rate of change will be change in the y values divided by change in the x's. And that's when we graph a function and we want to find the rate of change. We have the change of the y over the change of the x. Now, if we have a linear function, line, we are going to find the slope, which is, the slope is the same thing as the rate of change of a non-vertical line. You guys will see what happens when it's vertical, but if it's not vertical, we are going to find the slope. So what is the slope? Well, slope is the average rate of change, but when you look at the graph, I do have a line here on the graph, and the line is going up from left to right, and it has steepness. Think like a mountain. When you guys go up the mountain, sometimes it's easy to walk up, sometimes it's not easy to walk up. So depending on how steep it is, that's how you guys will walk up the mountain. So when you guys actually have a graph, a line on a coordinate plane, we can find the slope by using rise over run. Now, the variable that represents slope in algebra is m. So you guys have to memorize m variable is slope for a line. Rise over run, it tells you how to move from one point on the line to another point on the line. And you just don't go sideways when you guys go to the point. In a coordinate plane, there's only up direction, down direction, left direction, and right direction. Yes, you guys can connect the points and you make a line, but the way you guys move is up, down, left, or right. So let's look at the rise first. When you guys have rise, that's going to be your direction going up or your direction going down. So you guys see the arrow for rise, that's going to be up or down, and the run is going to be to the left or to the right. So the way you guys look at the points when you guys want to move from one point to a second point, what the slope, the direction you guys need to go, in this case, you guys go up and then you guys go to the right. So when you guys find the rise and the run, you're going to have to count how many units you have to go up, how many units you have to go to the right, and you're going to put those values on the numerator and the denominator of the fraction. If you guys go up, your answer, or not your answer, your value of rise is going to be positive, and when you guys go to the right, it's going to be positive. If you guys go down, it's going to be negative, and if you go to the left, it's going to be negative. But usually, when we start using rise over run, we're always going to go to the right. So let me just make a couple notes right here when you guys look at the arrows. So just keep in mind that if you guys go up, so you can see the arrow going up is going to be a positive value, and if you guys go down, it's going to be a negative value right here. When you guys go to the right, it's going to be a positive value, and when you guys go to the left, it's going to be a negative value. So that's how you find the slope when you have the graph of a line. So you can look at the steepness if you guys find the rise over run. Now, let's say that you guys don't have the graph. You only have points of the line. So imagine the line is not here, just the 2 points. Well, we have a formula, which is called the slope formula, to find the slope of the line. So we are going to have a y2 value minus a y1 value divided by x2 value minus x1 value. How do you get those numbers? In the first point, notice that we have here a point. We are going to have an x coordinate and a y coordinate. So my first point is going to be x1 and y1. My second point is going to have the same thing, x coordinate and the y coordinate. So we can have an x2 and a y2. You're going to substitute the values. So the y's, remember that's the rate of change up here, the change of the y's. So you're going to take the y2 value minus the y1 divided by x2 minus x1. Make sure that you guys check your signs. Make sure that you always reduce the fraction if you guys can. And that's going to be the steepness or the slope of the line. Now, let's go ahead and try using the graph to find the slope first. And then we're going to move on how to find the slope when you have given points. So before I give you guys an example, I do have some graphs here. And when you understand the direction of the line and the slope, it's going to be a lot helpful when you try to find the answer. So let's look at the first graph on the left side right here. It says here that if you have a line with the slope that is up from left to right. So notice that I'm starting on the left side of the line, and as I move on, I go up the line. That's going to be a positive slope. From left to right, increasing is going up, is positive. If you have a line with the slope that goes down from left to right, so notice the line right here, from left, and you start going down the line, which is decreasing, that's going to be a negative slope. If you have an horizontal line sideways from left to right, that's zero slope of zero. And if you have a vertical line up and down, straight up, straight down, that's going to be an undefined. We don't know what the slope is. That's why we use the word undefined. So vertical line is undefined. Horizontal line is zero slope. Negative is when you go down. Positive slope is when you guys go up. So let's look at a couple of graphs and we're going to try to find the slope. So notice the two graphs that I have here, and I want to find the rate of change or the slope of the graph. So let's look at the one on the left side first. I have a black line, and notice that when I start from the left, I go up to the right. So from left to right, this goes up. So my slope has to be a positive value, a positive answer. Now, how do you actually find the slope? Well, yes, they do give us points. You have 0, 1, and 2, 5. But without using those numbers, I'm going to show you guys how to find the slope. So first, I'm going to start with my value or my variable m, which means slope, equals, I'm going to have my rise. I need the rise and the run. So let's go ahead and look for those numbers. What I do is, I try to find out how do I get from this point on the line to the one up here on the line. So I always start with the rise. I notice that I have to go up to go to that point, and right here I need to make a right turn, and I go all the way to the point. So I need to know how many steps I go up and how many steps I go to the right. So let's count up. 1, and I'm counting the steps, the little lines on the squares, or you can say the corners of the squares. 1, 2, 3, 4. So at this point, I have to turn right. But I went 1, 2, 3, 4 up. So I'm going to put the number 4 next to that line. And then on the right side, I count how many steps from the corner. 1 step, 2 steps. So I'm going to put a 2 on top of that line. Now, if you guys notice, with the line and the 2 red segments or lines, you can see a triangle. And that's what we want. We want to make a triangle to find the rise over run. Now let's put everything together. So rise is going to be how many steps I went up or down. In this case, I went up. So I'm going to put a 4 on the top. and my run is going to be how many I went to the right. So that'd be 2. So my slope of the line, when you divide, reduce the fraction, 4 over 2, that's equal to 2. So my slope of the line is 2. Let's try the next one. The blue line, now you guys can see the line going down. So from left to right, my answer, my slope has to be negative. So let's start with m equals, and I'm going to erase the m. That was really ugly. So I'm going to put another m. M equals, and let's go ahead and check how many steps I go down, how many steps I go to the right. So I notice that I have to go from these points to the one down here. That means I have to go down, and right here I need to make a right turn. I went down and then right, and I need to know how many steps I have to move. So let's look at the ones that you go down. From the point up here, 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, or you can say 3 units. Now, you went down. When the rise is down, that's going to be a negative steps, or you have -3. And when you guys go to the right, 1 step, 2 steps, that's going to be 2. So I'm going to have to set up my fraction once again, rise over run, and I'm going to set up my answers. So my run, let's start with the rise. My rise is my steps that I went down, so that's going to be a -3, and my run is going to be the number of steps I go to the right, and that's 2. I checked the fraction, and notice you cannot reduce the fraction. So my slope here is -3 over 2. Okay, so that's how you find the slope of a line from a graph. You guys have the picture, you guys have the line, so you just need to find out how many steps you go down, how many steps you go to the right, or maybe how many steps you go up and how many steps you go to the right. Now let's take out the graphs, and we are going to find the slope when you have points. So you guys can see the points here. I have 3 sets or 3 different examples, and we want to find the slope of the line that passes through each pair of points. So let's look at the first one, which is -2, 0 and 1, 5. So notice I don't have a graph, but I do have points. I'm going to write down the formula that we can use when you don't have a graph, and the slope formula is y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. So I need to know which numbers are the x1, the y1, the x2, and the y2. So my first point is x1 and y1. There's your x coordinate and your y coordinate. Second point, you have your x2 and your y2. So now all you have to do is substitute the numbers and check when you reduce what is the answer. So I will have y2 is right here. So there's a 5. So I'm going to put 5 minus, and I'm going to take y1, which is 0. So I put a 0 here, divided by x2. Let's look for x2. It's right here. There's the 1 minus, and x1 is negative. Now I do have a negative already, a minus, but since the x1 is also negative, I need to use parentheses to separate those two negatives. You never want a negative just together side by side without parentheses. Make sure you guys use parentheses. What happens? Well, on the bottom, we have double negatives. So that's going to become positive, positive. Double negative, you change that to positive. But let's go ahead and look on the top. M equals, on the top, 5 minus 0. That's going to be 5. And on the bottom, you guys have a 1 plus positive 2. Or you can say 1 plus 2. And 1 plus 2 is 3. So my slope is 5 over 3. We don't need that graph. We know what the slope is because we use the slope formula. So let's try a couple more examples. The next one, same thing. I'm going to use the same formula because I don't have a graph. So I'm going to label the points. This is x1, y1, x2, and y2. So let me just substitute the numbers into the formula. I'm not going to write down the formula because it's right here. You guys can see the y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. So let's go ahead and substitute. So y2 is right here. It's a -3. So I'm going to put -3 minus, and I'm going to look for y1. That's 4. So I put -4 over, and you guys have x2, which is the bottom, x2 minus x1. So x2 is 2 minus, and we have x1, which is -3. So we have minus -3. And notice I'm using parentheses because we have double negatives. Again, careful with those signs. Always check your signs. Double negatives, you need to make them positive. So let's do the top. M equals negative, and we have a 7 over, so I'm looking at the top, -3 minus 4, that's -7. The bottom, 2 plus 3, or you can say 2 plus +3, but it's the same thing. 2 plus 3, 5. Double check your fraction. Yeah, you cannot reduce this fraction. So my answer, my slope is -7 over 5. Now, let me give you guys a note. Very important. And I want you guys to pay really close attention. So here's a note. If you guys, let's say for your answer, you get -7 on the top, and then, just an example, you get -5 on the bottom. If you guys have a negative on the top and a negative on the bottom, negative divided by negative will turn positive. So those two negatives will turn positive, positive. So in this case, your slope is going to be a +7 over 5 because you have two negatives, one on the top and one on the bottom. And you guys can write that as m equals 7 over 5. And I want you guys to look at the difference. The one we got, so I'm going to go back over here, there's only one negative. There's no negative on the bottom, only on the top. So this one's okay, -7 over 5. This one, if you get a negative on the top and a negative on the bottom, that would turn to a positive. So keep that in mind. Always check, double check, triple check your signs. Okay, so let's do one more. And that's going to conclude my video after this one. But let's go ahead and label the numbers. So this is x1, y1, x2, and y2. So I'm going to substitute the values. y2 is 7 minus y1 is 3 divided by x2 is 6 minus x1 is 6. So let's do the top. 7 minus 3 is 4, and the bottom, 6 minus 6 is 0. All right, guys. Now, important, also very important. If you guys have a 0 on the bottom, actually, let me just highlight it. There's a 0 on the bottom of the fraction. When you guys have that 0 on the bottom, doesn't matter what number you have on the top. If it's negative, positive on the top, does not matter. If you have a 0 on the bottom, your slope will be undefined. So you're going to write down the word undefined. And why is it undefined? Because we don't know what is when you take a number divided by 0. So we say it's undefined. If you try it with your calculator, you're going to get a syntax error. You're going to get some type of error because you cannot divide by 0. Now here's a very important note. One more time. So here's the note, okay? If, let's say, you get a fraction m equals, and the top number, so this is just an example, if you get a 0 on the top, and on the bottom, you get a number. So let me just put number here, okay? Doesn't matter if it's negative or positive. But if the 0 is on the top of the fraction, your slope is going to be 0. Let me do that again. I didn't like that 0. 0, right there. So a fraction with a 0 on the top, is 0. And let me just highlight that again. You guys can see the 0 on the top right here. So that's going to be 0. If you guys have a 0 on the bottom, so here's an example, 0 on the bottom is undefined. But if you guys have 0 on the top, it's going to equal 0. So let me just put a box here so you know that is your answer. So keep in mind, guys, I gave you guys 2 different notes. Always pay attention to your signs. Always pay attention where is the 0, because it can be undefined or your slope can be 0. I'm going to have to do a part 2 video for the conclusion of the section. But this one is the last example. Make sure you guys practice, and I'll see you guys later.